So, welcome once again. I am really happy with how this model came out, and therefore I won't go through all of the usual preachy stuff. Do this and do that. This is the best way of blah blah blah. There is a time and place for those kinds of videos, where I really want to share my techniques and inspirations, methods and tools and all of the other things that I can come across or think about when I'm thinking about modeling. This time, it will be just the pure painting process. The video itself will be divided into a few sections. I am not really sure how many at this time, because I may add something in the post-production if I am not happy with it. So the video will be structured as follows: where I found the inspiration and a little bit about the model itself, just a little bit about the preparatory work, then it will be airbrushing the armor, the sword and the bigger details, the base and its importance, and last but not least the rest of the model. And there of course will be the model presentation, but let's not count this into the list. Very often when I want to crack the colors of a model, I use a tool called Adobe Colors. It is totally free on the Adobe page. You just have to click Create in the upper left corner and then Extract Motif or whatever it is called in your language. Sorry, I have the Polish version here. I will speed this footage up to not make it very boring. The idea here is that I really liked two pictures and I really wasn't sure which one to use. Getting back to the pictures, you have the option to scroll over 5 spots on them, and Adobe Colors will give you the paint colors you left your cursor on. I was also really inspired by Richard Gray's paint job, so I took it under scope as well. You all know the model, and if you haven't, here he is glued. He is really open, and by open I mean there are not many spots that are hidden by other parts. This makes the paint job a lot easier. I had a ready base which I put him on. I just added some texture paste and a few skulls and he was ready for a paint job. The colors I chose were mostly from the first inspirational picture. Lots of browns and blue-grays for the highlights. Additionally, there will be a small tweak in the form of purple in the darkest shadows. The model should come out really dark, so to boost his contrast, the base will be green with snowy elements. This should boost the contrast really nicely. So, it is always good to get some kind of inspiration. Well, what I'm thinking about here, and this is just my opinion, you can look at other people's paint jobs, that's perfectly fine. But please don't compare yourself to them. It makes absolutely no sense. Unfortunately, and this is also my opinion, because I know that all of you guys are perfectly great at painting, but there will always be someone who does it better than you. And this can be very discouraging. If you, for example, get inspired by somebody's painted model and then you don't do such a good job as they did. What I do, for example, is get inspiration from pictures or from somebody's paint job, and by paint job I mean like a normal paint job on a canvas. There is not much to say about the prep work here. The base was ready and this gave me a lot of extra time. I just added, as mentioned previously, a few skulls and binded them with the ready base by using some texture paste. He got a sturdy primer and then a black Vallejo coat. Always remember to give the model a black coat. Your primer can be different than the paint you use, and if you will need to correct anything with black, there will be no differences in the paint look and feel. Trust me on that. I didn't have all of the paints extracted by Adobe Colors, but I had those 4, which were almost exact equivalents of the ones I needed. The 5th one was a mix of Rhinox hide and the darker grey one. This is the standard process. I mix the paint in separate pots to not stain or clog the airbrush. It is easier to pour such a pre-prepared mixture, and it allows me for a longer playtime with the paint to get the exact color or consistency I want. After I put the airbrush thinner, I check the paint by spreading it on the sides of the pot. If the paint sticks to it, it is then relatively thick. If it slides down, leaving almost no visible coat on the sides of the pot, it is thin then. I prefer a thinner one sprayed with a lower pressure. This is more time consuming but gives a smoother effect and allows for a very thin coat. There was no specific plan to spray the paint in strategic points. A black undercoat under a lamp will tell you where are the darkest spots and the highlights. Once you spray the first layer, just go with the next one and spray it on a smaller area till you reach the brightest shade. Additionally, after each paint is prepared and put on the model, I clean the airbrush by spraying the rest of it out and then pouring airbrush cleaner and repeating the process. This can take 3 to 4 times, but this way the nozzle is cleaned by the airbrush cleaner and doesn't clog. It is of course possible to pour the paint out somewhere and then clean it with the cleaner. Whatever works for you is cool for me. Everybody has a preferred way. It even sometimes happens to me that I am in such a rush that I don't do it properly and the paint starts to spit out, but... Well, the airbrush got clogged here. Don't worry guys, we all make mistakes like I did here. Just remember to not do as I did. Do not push the paint while it's still wet. I think I got somehow distracted and I wanted to take the paint off really quick, but that wasn't a very good idea. To soak it in. I almost took off a few layers of paint with a paper towel. Just remember to let it dry and then paint over it. If your paint wasn't thick enough, then okay, it's a little bit more work to do, but it will not be noticeable. And even if you create some kind of layers on your model with the paint, just try to somehow fit it into the model. Do a little bit of details there, and by details I mean, for example, some rust or maybe some holes after shooting, some cutting points, whatever. It can be done. The model looked pretty great at that point, and I would be really happy if I could leave it there. But as mentioned previously, I was impressed with Richard Gray's paint job, so I thought I could give it a purple tint in the shadows by spraying a little bit of ink with a low pressure. Acrylic inks are awesome for the airbrush because they need no thinning. Just learn the coding of the transparency on the bottle. Some leave a really thin and subtle effect and some cover really strong. Those ones you can dilute. When the armour was ready, it was just a matter of spraying a grey ink and then a white one on the base to make a zenithal effect, because I intended to use contrast paints later. The airbrush is a very powerful yet delicate tool, and it is also very hard to copy the results of the airbrush when you are painting with the brush, so you have to be very precise. Now, why am I saying that? I don't know if it's just me with my lack of skills, or is it something normal. I just can't copy the results done by the airbrush, so I really try not to mess the work done previously. Ergo the masking tape. I don't believe in my skills at this point. Better to hide the model. The sword got a coat of grey and white ink in some spots, and to make it more interesting, a turquoise in a few places. The purity seal, or whatever the hell this is, was also zenithally painted with grey and white and then with an overall coat of angron red. Looking back, I would choose a different color, for example ball red, the contrast. Nevertheless, it did the job. The purity seal was done, as well as half work for the sword. The middle part of the blade was painted black. The cloak and the shoulders got different types of brown. I did the edge highlights with a white paint on the blade of the sword and a few spots to boost the contrast. The runes, okay, let's call it runes. I don't know how to name it differently, were painted white and then green. What I did offline is dry brushing some black at the bottom of the middle of the sword and a little bit of grey at the top. For the cloak as well as for the shoulder pads, I did the same maneuver, adding more and more of a bone color to the brown and just layering it. The higher I went, the brighter the color was. The things that you will see here about the base are not on the correct painting order. What I mean by that is, for example, when I was putting the tufts on the model itself, it was 99 or more or less 100% done. Nevertheless, I think it makes sense to show the full base process here to highlight the point I was making at the beginning of the video. As I was putting a thick coat of contrast paints on the base, there was no sense to wait for it to dry and move on with it. So I painted some details on the miniature in that time. This base should be in contrast to the model, ergo have a bit white or off-white on it as the miniature is very dark. This will allow your eyes to separate both of them. So the base had a zenith tool on it and it wasn't supposed to be the center of attention. This means less effort put into the work, but it doesn't mean that I can slack off and just do anything on it. Zenithal highlights are perfect for contrast paints or any equivalent from the brands you choose. I only could find some browns, greens and skull colors, but that's good enough. The skulls on the base got the latter, and the base got a green paint. After it was dry, it got some brown contrasts. A lighter dry brush and it was ready. The skulls on the other hand got some highlight layers as well. All of the details were just a case of choosing the paints I needed and following some very simplified rules of light and shapes. The higher you go, the stronger the light. It is not very sophisticated, but it works well on flat surfaces, for example. To separate the armor panels, we need, of course, a good amount of edge highlights. The whole model, every edge, got a highlight of blue-gray, and the upper-facing edges got some light silver. For this strange thing, which probably has a proper name on his left shoulder, I put some masking tape on very tightly and made a simple 4-piece checker. I wanted to freehand a Black Templar logo, but after failing miserably, I painted it over and put a decal on. The light on his belt was a fascinating yet problematic piece of the job. On many pictures, it has a bright yellow light. Sure, why not? Additionally, I put some light reflections on the cloth and the armor. The further the place, the darker the light bouncing off. I think it made some sense the way I did it. Afterwards, it was just some gold NMM with some browns, ochres, yellows and ice yellow. A very simple layered effect. If it works, you don't need to change it. I promised myself no glazing or blending and none was done. I have talked a lot about how the model was done, therefore it is time to see the final result.
3, 2, 1, go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Ready, set, go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Ready, set, go. Everyone watching, we up in the game. Shooting our shot, yeah, we ready to play. Looking at power, no, we can't be tamed. Remember the name. Leveling up, yeah, we breaking the chains. Playing with fire, don't rattle the cage. Pushing the limit, whatever it takes. This is the moment where legends are made. This is where legends are made. 3, 2, 1, go. Are you ready? Are you ready?
And this is the finished model. He is wonderful, my baby boy. So handsome. Of course, I made a few mistakes, there are no doubts here. A lot of things could have been done differently or even better. But this is as always a learning process. Remember guys, be very proud of your models. I am 120% sure that you always give your best to them, as I did here. And as I will, you also will get better, but you have to practice and paint a lot. Of course, as always, thanks a lot for joining me today. You are all hyper spectacular and I really mean it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give a like, give a share, leave a comment. Visit my Discord. It's 100% free, you only have to install Discord or use it on your computer. And I'm there every day, sending pictures and talking with you guys. I would be really happy if you could also have a look at my Patreon or Instagram. Links to both of them as well as to the Discord will be in the video description. Take care guys, and see you in the next one. And don't forget, the Emperor protects, and even if he doesn't, the Emperor's champion protects.
Three, two, one, go. Let's go. Beast mode. Are you ready?